Welcome to this hour on Cyberpower of Tigray. Good afternoon, wherever you are joining us from today. My name is Helena Tadesse. Thank you so very much for being here. As you know, today's conversation is Dear Tigray Women and Tegaru women in the diaspora. So we will be speaking with our women, our survivors that are within Tigray or possibly outside of Tigray, but still in Ethiopia, as well as at large our Tegaru women within the diaspora, both in the States and internationally. Before we begin, I do want to tell you today's topic holds a very sensitive material. And when I say sensitive material, of course, I mean we'll be using words and terminologies that could be triggering to some. And in respect of the actuality of this genocide, we cannot not call the words as they are. We cannot, I cannot not say what it is that our people are going through, and that would be dishonoring the many survivors and many who've lost their lives. So I really pray that you stay tuned, but if it starts to get a bit uncomfortable for you, if in fact it is triggering, please don't feel compelled. The recording will live, of course, online, and you can come back to it later on, because it is my prayer that it offers you, as possibly someone who's gone through some of what I'm going to be talking about today, or maybe someone who may have someone in their family and want to know how to take steps in being of help, that you leave this conversation with just some gems and some knowledge. And also to know that within this conversation, I invite you more than I ever, and I always really, I'm thankful for our back and forth, and especially when we have mental health professionals or anyone for that matter, want you to be able to ask the question, so it leads into that conversation. For every question one person has, we know 10, 100, 1,000 people or more are thinking of the same question. So having said that, especially today, I want so much your comments on this topic and so much to just have a back and forth on what we're talking about. As a start to this conversation, I took some notes that I really want to share with you. First of all, we will be diving into what's happening to our women currently. Sexual violence. It was important to me to say this in this way. Sexual violence and rape in particular is considered the most underreported violent crime on a day-to-day basis. We're not talking about war, but just on a day-to-day, living in the US, living abroad, on the day-to-day, this is considered just overall the most underreported violent crime. So imagine for this to be happening on the war front. I should say, in the middle of a genocide. The numbers that we have heard of the Tegaru women who've been assaulted, who've been raped by the troops on the battlefield specifically, and namely the Amhara troops, the Amhara militia, local militia, as well as the Eritrean troops that are continuously raping the Tigrayan women while fleeing to refuge, is the tip of the iceberg, because a lot of the women are not reporting it. And as I say this, it's very important that if you're feeling a sense of anxiety and overwhelming feeling, to please breathe, because it's not an easy thing to hear. Breathe and know that you probably had an idea already, but hearing it out loud makes it that much more visceral of a feeling. It gives you that feeling, that actual feeling in your body of panic and horror. And why not? Because it is horrific. But let us be as strong as we can to get through this conversation and really bring forth some light into the situation. One of the key forms of advocacy is to say, in the language in which the people who can make a difference speak, the atrocities that are happening. So when we're speaking to one another, we are speaking to relieve the stress and the tension is so important. And in advocacy, when we're speaking in English, we are allowing the world, speaking predominantly in English, and especially I think about the United Nations Security Council. I think about the American branches that are working on this. Right now we have campaigns, hashtag UNSC Act Now, Biden Act Now, all of this different campaigns so that we're able to be heard. So in yours and my stream of mental health and well-being, I know we're doing the work of both arenas. While we're taking care of our mental, we're also wanting to understand how we can help in the advocacy. And this is what it looks like. Dr. Helen, a little last minute, but let me know she was unable to attend, and she sends her kindest regards. As we know, advocacy is not perfect, but it is ours. So this is what it looks like. But this conversation, and I'm very much looking forward to having this conversation with her possibly next week. And this specific topic is going to be a series, maybe back to back or sort of in between, depending on what's going on in the next couple of weeks. But this is a conversation that needs to continue being had. Having said that, it's too much of an importance on this topic for me to just not show up today. So what I'd like to do is have a precursor to Dr. Helen and or the many other doctors who are ready to have this conversation with us. Maybe not today, but definitely. So the precursor, let's define a couple of terminology. And you guys know it's my favorite thing to do because there are various ways of looking at things, but when we go straight to the dictionary, when we go straight to how international law, mandate, and the world at large defines something that we're dealing with, we're better informed, and we're speaking to a meaning that is across the board. Genocide. Let's talk about that word genocide. We've talked extensively on this program, on this stream, first of all, in being gentle with oneself and using that terminology, especially in our Twitter campaigns, and understanding when we're using it so often that it can be triggering, such a weight to it. And rightfully so. This is why it's such a weight to it. One of the meanings of genocide is intentional destruction of a group of people. Intentional destruction of a group of people. So someone or people have chosen these people, a certain group of people, no longer need to exist and are carrying out acts to, in their minds, ensure that this is the case. Thus, the case of the Tigray genocide. Rape becomes yet another form of weapon in genocide. This is a quote. It is used deliberately, so it's purposely used. It is used as a strategy to destroy a community, both physically as well as mentally, just like a bullet, just like a bomb. In time of a genocide, when a group of people have set it in their minds that they will destroy another group of people, that this group of people no longer needs to, deserves to, whatever their case or propaganda may be, no longer need to exist, They carry out hostilities and atrocities to that effect. And rape in this case, in the context of genocide, is used to ensure that. The quote continues, rape committed during war is intended to change the ethnic makeup of the next generation of said people. And we know that to be fact in our case because we know the propaganda behind this supposed war. We know why this genocide is being carried out. It also has been in history, and currently in Tigray, deliberately used to infect women with disease and or make women incapable of bearing children. Why are we speaking to this so bluntly? Because that is what our women in Tigray, that is what our girls in Tigray. And possibly we have not started to discuss this, but potentially that is what our boys and men in Tigray are facing. If we're honest with ourselves, rape is not only set aside for women and young girls, although the majority is women and young girls. UN Resolution 1820 states that rape and forms of sexual violence can constitute a war crime against humanity or a constitutive act with respect to genocide. So the UN has not only known, but has stated in various documents, in many documents, that this happens in wars. This is unfortunately part of wars, specifically those that are said to be genocide. And again, that's why we have our Twitter campaigns. That's why we advocate. I'm starting our conversation today with all these facts because it's very important to me, anyone listening who has been a victim, a survivor of rape, either in this genocide or in past, whether it be during a war or domestic violence or any other violence dealing with sexual violence, to know that whatever might be in your mind right now, if you're finding yourself doubting yourself, blaming yourself, if you're finding yourself being mad at yourself or others, I need you to know, we as a community, as a world, need you to know that it is not your fault. It is not your fault, and this actually happened to you. People who have gone through traumas, oftentimes the body and the mind repress the traumatic event so that there's a semblance, there's a feeling of control, because sexual violence takes that away. It takes away all forms of control, whether it is actual control or just the feeling of control from a human being, no matter what gender, no matter what age. Once a human being feels out of control to unspoken proportions, in order to cope, in order to continue living, whether that person wants to or not, and sometimes they could be being sustained in the hospital by life-sustaining measures, meaning it's possible this person may have suicidal thoughts, but they're unable to carry it out because they're numb or they've lost all function of movement. They're catatonic, meaning they're just kind of frozen in the moment. Whether it's that or going through it day to day, maybe this person has children, maybe this person is a caregiver, or just doesn't know what to do, going through day to day, feeling out of control. And of course, when this form of feeling and other things that come with that continue day after day, it becomes very dangerous because you start thinking about how do you make this pain stop? And of course, as we know, one way or another, a lot of really heavy thoughts and actions can follow that. So it is so important, not just for me, but any of us who maybe are told by a loved one or even by a stranger that they have been sexually violated. Perhaps maybe the very first thing out of our mouths, even while we're putting together our thought, should be, that should not have happened to you, or some form of that. It's very normal and understandable to be stunned, but we should also be ready, or ready ourselves to hear more stories of that, not just in the news, but as what's happening to our people in Tigray and in Sudan, those who fled to Sudan, to the camps, come up with their stories, come out and feel comfortable enough to say, I have been violated, then let's be ready to, just open up our minds, our hearts, to finding out how we can be of help. And that's what we are doing already as a community, as a family. So it almost goes without saying, but I just wanted to say that. Anyway, in talking about what's happening with our women within Tigray and surrounding areas, but within the country, I also want to address the women, young girls, and potentially boys and young men and men in general, all Tegaru, and if there's any non-Tegaru watching this, this applies to you as well, that have dealt with sexual trauma in the past, but not have dealt with it in terms of seeking help, telling someone, no matter who it is. I need you to know, we need you to know that it is not your fault. You didn't ask for it, you didn't deserve it. No one deserves, no one wants, no matter what you might be telling yourself, no one wants to be violated in a way, in any way. And it is not your fault. Our mind, in order to cope with things, has a way of playing tricks on us. So I want to make sure you're not one of those people, that your mind for years upon years has not been playing tricks on you and making you believe you need to even ask a question like, did I deserve it? Did I do something wrong? Because the violator was not looking or did not need any form of enticement or anything you could have done. It's something that the violator, that the perpetrator comes with, whether they are not well inside. And of course, you would think something must be wrong in order for someone to do that for another human being, or whatever the case may be. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. Having said all of this, what are some of the coping mechanisms? Or what are some of the things we have to look out for? In having spoken with, for me, I've spoken with young girls and women who have shared their past traumas of having been sexually violated. There is a theme that I'm seeing, and I know once we're in conversation with the psychiatrists and psychologists that I'm looking forward to coming to address that on mental wellness in time of crisis. I just know this theme will continue to appear, and that is immediately after the violation, the question is, what did I do to deserve this? I must have done something wrong. Because the person is so shocked, the person is so immobilized, the person is so, even if there were hints, really inside, you never think that you will be violated in such a way. And sometimes it happens within the home or an extended family member. So it's not always perpetrated like it is during this time within Tigray by someone that you don't know. A lot of times it's also perpetrated by those friends of the family, friends, family members. So for the women in the diaspora, specifically, because we're talking about people we know or violence within the home, I want you, in preparation to speaking with a health professional, to think about some of the feelings that you had. And I pray it's not triggering, but I want you to think about some of the feelings you might have had when it happened, in terms of how you might have brought it on yourself, meaning how you might have flipped the situation and having thoughts like, again, what did I do? How did I cause this to happen? Although we know, I'm telling you, you did nothing wrong. But I also know, with women that I've spoken with in the past, that is a running theme. Also, I invite you to start looking at ways that you try to continue on with your day-to-day, even though this thought undoubtedly consumed every second of every day. And how can it not? Because it's a clear violation of everything. That's some of the things that I'd like for you to start thinking about in preparation. To our women in Tigray, this ungodly, unearthly situation that you have faced, you are facing, will not last forever. And I pray that is coming in the way I mean it, because if you're listening to this and you're a survivor, you are having a hard time dealing with this. It's very fresh, it's very new, it just happened. And we need you to hold on, because tomorrow will bring something very new. And then the day after that, and the day after that, and all of those days combined will mean healing and true calm and peace within your heart. But we need you to hold on so that we can help you work on it. And I do believe it all begins by allowing yourself to know that nothing you did brought this on. No one can bring this on. And this is as a retaliation on what those people that have done this to you believe in their minds it means to be a Tigrayan, and how to cut down Tegaru people. It is a war on the psyche, on the mental, the physical, on all fronts. And it's hard for me to say to be strong, because your job is not to be strong. What we are asking you to do is to make it one more day, and then to make it another day. Because we are doing our hardest to reach you. We're doing our best to send help in whatever way that might be. What can you do right now? Right now, if there's somebody that is near you that you can trust, please let that someone know. If you are in a situation where you feel you have no one to trust, then don't. It is time to follow your gut. It is time for self-care, and however that looks to you. And if you are in an area where you feel there's no one to trust, then it's time to trust yourself. It's time to forgive yourself. And the women I've spoken with who've had this experience, something else has shown up that's very common that I'm seeing a thread of, which is there is a lot of the women feel upset at themselves for what they call blacking out at the moment, what they call just completely sort of mentally disappearing from the moment. And then once the violent act is over, they've shared with me that there is this sense of being so mad at themselves because maybe if they didn't escape that time, that moment mentally, perhaps they could have done something. So I ask you to please give yourself grace as you would give grace to anyone who would be telling you that this happened to them. Because the mind knows how to protect itself. And when the body goes through obscene traumatic experience, the mind scrambles in some way to help us, to help you get through that moment. Because all the mind is thinking about is, how do I make it through this moment? And for some women, and maybe for some women that are lucky enough, their minds just shut down so that they don't have to be in that moment at that time. So if you are one of those people that feels angry with yourself for having shut down at that time, please extend the grace you would give to anyone else to yourself. Because that was your mind protecting your body, allowing you to make it through that time. That was your mind protecting you and allowing you to make it through that time. So, in essence, there was absolutely no other way your mind could see how you could make it through being violated if it did not shut all of you down for that time. And what happens is, until we get help, speak to a professional in whatever capacity, we stay shut down. We stay shut down. So again, I know for our sisters, mothers, grandmothers, and possibly boys and men to whom this is happening right now in Tigray, there isn't the availability of possibly getting help right now. So we're begging you to just hold on, please. In terms of our Tegaru women in the diaspora, I ask you, do you feel you've been shut down since the traumatic event happened? And can you begin to understand why that might be? It is actually a very natural occurrence, a response to an event. Every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. You were traumatized, and so then the body shut down, the mind shut down. This is what we're talking about today. I do want to get to the comments right now before I continue. And hopefully there are questions either on the Facebook Live or the YouTube. Salam, welcome, thank you. Salam, everyone. Thank you to God love. Rubel Gabra, salam. Thank you, guys. So I actually asked a couple of psychologists to please send any comments that I would be able to read on our show today in preparation for this series. And one of our psychologists, or actually psychiatrists, sent this to our mothers, sisters, and daughters. It is not your fault. You did not ask for war. You did not ask to be victims to this travesty. What are you feeling? What you are feeling is as old as time, meaning this has happened before and it continues to happen in history. In war, sexual violence has been used as a form of weapon. It is the fault of the hatred and the fault of the power that they feel. Please talk to your sisters, to your neighbors, to your mothers, to your friends. The poison cannot remain in you, meaning the poison of heartache, the poison of grief. Ask for help when you can. We are here for you. And again, if you are not near us, then please hold on until you are. All we want to be able to do is help you. So it continues to say, unfortunately, when people go through something this traumatic or with the potential loss of life, it is harbored in the mind, in the heart, as well as the body. From nightmares to flashbacks, intrusive thoughts throughout the day, to physical symptoms like headaches, stomach aches, pains and aches throughout the body. And worst of all, there is a feeling that you are to blame. You are not to blame. It is not your fault. Please get help if you can, or feel safely that you can. Connect to your community the best you can. Try not to be isolated. Lean on each other. Another one says, other symptoms can be avoided, like situations that may put your mind at the time of the violation. So if you were at a specific place, then try not to go to that place. If there were certain people there that might trigger or remind you of that violation, please, give yourself the grace and not be around those people. It continues to say situations, conversations, people that are maybe talking about instances around the trauma. It can limit your ability to have positive emotion and live, and you may be living in continued fear, horror, anger, or sadness. It can leave you feeling irritated, agitated, easily startled, hypervigilant, that maybe you feel always super aware. Maybe you feel you're being followed, or you're being talked about, things of this nature, with poor sleep and concentration. So these are some of the symptoms. You're unable to sleep. It could have even happened a long time ago, and you may still be unable to get a good night's rest. These are some of the symptoms. It can remind you for weeks or possibly for years, the psychiatrist says. Some carry it purely in their bodies, meaning it may cause you to hunch over, or it may cause you not to be all right with your self-image or body image. It may cause you even to hate the way you look. It may cause you to hate the way you smile, or even hate your own voice. Because really, the biggest reminder of your violation is you. So it's very understandable that just living with yourself could be the trigger. And that is why it's so important to get help in one way or another. If you feel there's someone you trust, please begin by speaking the words, saying that this happened to you, by admitting, maybe even to yourself, that it was not your fault and this happened to you. Consistently in the state of fear, if you're finding yourself consistently, again, you feel like you're being followed, if you feel like people are talking about you, or something bad is going to happen, or, this is some of the signs that are brought on by your past trauma with sexual abuse, with increased stress levels, panic, and constant level of tension. Always tense, always just cannot relax. And maybe you don't even realize it's because of that specific past trauma, but please know that this is also how it shows up. Let me know. And then she continues to say, please be prepared to talk about these things. I'm going to go to the comments and see what's going on there. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. We need to recognize our deepest feelings, both good and bad. We need also to speak up, to share with friends and family, lean on each other. Alam Tesfai, I couldn't agree more. There's such a feeling of unburdenment that comes from sharing it, being able to share it with someone, being able to say, this happened to me. I see you. Tesfa Alam. Rabel, thank you guys again. Thank you. So I'm inviting you, as I see on this topic right now, to please go ahead, and maybe you're not speaking for yourself, but I have, well, I know for a fact, if we ourselves have not been violated in such a way that for sure we know someone, or even perhaps you suspect someone in your family, in your greater community might have. So any questions that might arise from that, I really invite you to speak on that now. And as we talk about it, I'm going to be taking notes so that when our conversation continues, that with our psychiatrists and psychologists that are to come in the coming weeks, that they are addressed. So just a moment ago, I shared with you all the different ways it can show up, right? The fear, the anger, the just trepidation in the day-to-day life. What happens when it shows up for us in that way is that the life that we were building or thought we had built then becomes sort of a nightmare to live in, because if what you thought in the past wasn't true, you thought you were safe, you thought something like that could never happen to you, then what makes anything true? So then comes the anger and the horror of, how do I get through this? And how do I tell my loved ones? Will they think I brought it on? All of these things. So then we begin to change as a human being. It's no longer Helena, it's no longer, Sahai or Adam. Then the trauma becomes who we are. And then additional anger comes from that. So in having our past stolen because of that trauma, because you start to think about your past and you're thinking nothing is true anymore. Then when we don't deal with that trauma, then our future is in jeopardy. So if someone has done this, if someone has violated you in this way, we ask you to hold on and to seek help and to talk to your community, because we can't have your violator to have stolen your past and to have stolen your future. As a community, that cannot stand, because we are your champion. We are your champion. What hurts you hurts us. So that is another reason we ask you to please get help, to please hold on until you get help. Hello, Winta. Thank you so much. Yes, Alam Tesfai. So in terms of how often, my continuous effort is to do wellness in time of crisis every week. I want to make sure that I'm not just coming on here just to say hi. I want to have something of value, although I'd love to say hi too, something of value to offer. So sometimes, like today, today it was very last minute that our doctor could not be with us, but every now and then schedules conflict, as you know. Everyone is all hands on deck, and sometimes patients pop up, or emergencies that you can't foresee come up, and you know. But today I just did not want to cancel today, because next week we will have our psychologist, psychiatrist. So I wanted to just get us prepared in the way of thinking, maybe some of the questions we can have, and even more, I didn't want to miss an opportunity if someone who'd been sexually violated was watching anywhere. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to say, we see you, we love you, it is not your fault, you did not bring it on yourself, it is not your fault. And as you can tell, both what I'm telling you as well as what our psychiatrist sent, that text, that is the biggest part, that that, I mean, I can say this for the rest of my life, and I will, to just remind you, it is not your fault. It just is not. And for someone who may have no experience with someone who's been in that situation, or no experience, yourself with that situation, you might be thinking, well, how could anyone think, it's their fault? How could anyone think they brought it on themselves? But it's the way the mind works, and we all know how powerful the mind is. It's just the way, whatever the mind needs to say or do to help us feel in control, even when we're hard on ourselves, even when we're beating ourselves up, you still get this false sense of control. Yeah, honestly, that is why disorders happen, like anorexia, like bulimia. There's a sense of control when people feel like they're out of control. And really, to a human being dealing with any form of trauma, that is one of the first things that you feel. Think about when we heard about this genocide. First thing we thought was, this can't be happening, right? I think across the board, we were thinking, this can't be real. This is ridiculous. This is not happening in Tigray. This is not happening. I have a feeling that's how, anyone with this large, atrocious, I mean, trauma, like, anyone. I think about the Holocaust. I think about Rwanda, the really well-known ones. I think about Yugoslavia. I think about China. First that, life was normal, and then it wasn't anymore. So it's that sense of loss of control that has your mind working overtime, trying to regain. And sometimes it shows up as, okay, I don't want to be here right now. I'm going to shut down. And again, as I mentioned earlier, some people never boot back up. There's never a reboot. There's never a coming back to life in the way that they were in the past, because from then on, it just becomes about safeguarding. It becomes about making sure the person never, something like that never happens to them again. Loss of trust, lack of sleep again, fear even of people that they know, because it's like, if this can happen to me, then anyone could do this to me. So another reason why it's so important how we speak to someone who's been violated in such a way. There really needs to be, and it goes without saying perhaps, but there really needs to be just a big form of grace, not to rush them. Even if you feel like that they've gone through it, it has to be, the time has to be right for them to say, this is what's happened to me. So, just letting them know, I'm here, I hear you, I see you whenever you're ready, and trying not to be confrontational, for sure. I'll go to the comments one more time. With our gender team within GSTS, you're hi. Oh, thank you so much. I actually am a community liaison for HPN, and Dr. Helen, who will be joining me at some point in the coming weeks, is one of our doctors that operates for members of our HPN group. So I think everybody knows HPN Health Professionals Network for Tigray. It is a nonprofit that was formed at the beginning of this crisis, and we're currently working with Doctors Without Borders, and Doctors Without Borders have access to parts of Tigray, parts because nobody has access. None of us in the diaspora have access, or even international NGOs have access to all of Tigray, no matter what the media is being led to believe by the politicians in Ethiopia, or the humanitarian offices within Ethiopia that are affiliated and linked to the state, the federal state. No one has full access. Also, Doctors Without Borders are working within the refugee camps within Sudan. So HPN is working in concert with them, and just pushing so hard. Worked on a project about insulin. As we know, high shortage of insulin. And thank you to everyone who's here that really gave for the $3 for insulin. HPN did, better than expected, and just able to prepare to send that insulin to our people, to the people that need it, which are on the front lines of everywhere. So as I see some comments are coming through regarding general matters, and seeing that there are no real just questions right now having to do with the gender-based violence or sexual-based violence that we were talking about today, in preparation for the coming weeks, that will be joined with our psychologists and psychiatrists. I'll close that part now. Again, please give yourselves grace, and please join us in the coming weeks. And definitely I will open the floor up to any questions having to do with anything that I can inform the community about what HPN is doing, or maybe what's going on in our refugee camps, our Tegaru camps in Sudan, or Twitter campaigns. Always on this program, near the end, I do remind you of the upcoming campaigns, protests, and things of that nature, because we've seen part of the feeling of trauma and feeling of this helplessness that comes with what we're dealing with in advocating for our people and our families, is that and what's going on, how can we help? So as always, I really want to remind you, there are a lot of people who still don't know about tweeting. A lot of people who still don't understand how to put together a Twitter page, a Twitter account. So please do share, even within your own circles. If you think about it, it's very likely you have not texted all the people that you know want to do something to help, mainly Tegarus, but also outside of our Tigrayan family. Their Stand with Tigray has made, a long time ago, a video in English and in Tigrinya on how to create a Twitter account, and also how to tweet. This is a very easy process. The tweets are already formed. They're hardworking people within all these organizations who sit all night and all day, even with jobs and with children, just like all of you that are doing all this advocacy work. And they write out these very thoughtful tweets to amplify the plight of our people. And they tag, and this takes such a long time, they tag the hashtags. Right now and always, the main hashtags have been hashtag Tigray genocide, and depending on the campaign, it's, there was a R2P, responsibility to protect, R2P Tigray, UNSC Act Now, United Nations Security Council Act Now, UN only for Tigray, United Nations investigate Tigray, all these hashtags, and then tagging the people to whom we're speaking. So talking to Secretary Blinken, State Secretary Blinken, or maybe representatives in your own hometown. A lot of times when I'm tweeting, I do use the templates, but if you have the time, we want you to paraphrase or rearrange the words, whatever it is, so that our entire community is not pushing out the same tweets, but definitely leave the tags and the hashtags as they are. That way, it also informs you of what's going on. Also, Twitter pages have been, I'm sure you've dealt with Twitter pages being canceled, and so you have to put on another page. And I just want to remind you, again, Stand with Tigray has put on an informative video very recently. You can find it on Instagram, but the short of it says a lot of our accounts are being stopped or paused because as soon as you form a new Twitter account, we're going ahead and quickly following people that we were following in the past. So because we know we are getting the news from them. But if you just joined and now all of a sudden you already follow 50 or 70 or 200 people, the Twitter page sees that, or Twitter sees that as something being off, and it may think you're a robot. So that's one of the reasons it stops it. Another reason could be if you are on Twitter going back and forth with someone else, they can report you as bullying, and without knowing, you might actually be bullying. So to that, all the advocates, all the activists, everyone has been pleading with, and it's not too bad in our community, but please don't waste time that we could be using to advocate for our people in going back and forth with anyone who does not show our side or share our pain. They're not worth it. Not worth it. So, not worth it. So please don't do that, because that also will get your account stopped. Also, there were 4 main points, but that's what I can remember now. If anyone is having issues like that, please let me know. Or if you have any questions on Twitter, please let me know. Unintentionally, today has become an informational stream, but there's nothing wrong with that. So let's get quickly to what is happening this week and possibly in your hometown when it comes to advocacy for the Tigray community. And remember, excuse me, that is my dog trying to get back in the house, our dog. And Tegaru events on Instagram, they've been doing an excellent job in making sure we're up to date on all the campaigns and everything. Actually, midnight tonight, or I'm sorry, midnight last night. So on the 18th was just today, midnight, on Amna, the End to Starvation War Crimes in Tigray began. It's amnatigray.org, right? So they're pre-written tweets, and it is speaking to just the man-made famine that's happening, the starvation. If you're following OCHA or any form of UN or NGO conversations and reports on our people, the amount of Tigray that is accessible is horrifying, as we know. And food is scarce. And we know that is being done purposely to hurt our people. And that is why we call it a genocide, because it is not a political, it's not government to government. The people, the innocent civilians, are the ones that are getting the brunt of it. And so we are demanding that the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council, the EU Commission, we're also pleading, however you want to look at it, that they do their jobs, that they hold up their end of the bargain, that they've promised the world time and time again of never again. After the Holocaust, never again another genocide, but it keeps happening again and again. So that's what when you take the time, when you make the time to engage in these Twitter campaigns, that's what it's doing. You're literally saying to, I mean, figuratively, but you're saying to that elected official or to that humanitarian official, you're saying, you said this was not going to happen again. It's happening, not just anywhere, it's happening in Tigray. And the more of us that are talking about it online, the quicker that they will pay attention. And the longer we continue talking about it, the more it will stay in the news and in the forefront of their minds. So if you're thinking, I've been tweeting, I did it at the beginning, we got to keep doing it. Now, day to day gets in the way. I get it. If I don't get it, I don't know who will. I definitely don't want you to feel that anxiety that comes with that. We've spoken in the past. How do you deal with that anxiety? Tell someone who doesn't know about Twitter about it. The same sort of feeling as the same idea as, teach a man to fish, will eat forever. But if you give a person to fish, then they'll eat for that one day. So you may not be able to tweet, but the person or people that you've taught how to tweet are tweeting while you're getting life back in order. So that is happening. It's a 24-hour campaign, and it's especially important to do it while everyone is doing it because it has more of an impact, but it still continues to have an impact after the fact even. Before I continue with what's going on, something that's happening immediately that definitely you can help with and that I'm putting my full support behind, and I'm telling everybody, especially my non-Tegaru friends, because for so little, so much could be done. In the camps in Sudan, our Tegarus are being given aid or food in the form of grains. So we're talking about, wheat, barley, however it comes, you see that jonia, right? You see that sack. So we know in that sack, it's not ready-made foods. It's not pizza, or it's not, it's not even, it's raw material. And in order to utilize that raw material, it needs to be ground. So it needs to be, people have to grind it in order to make it into injera, to make it into just anything edible. So as we get excited about aid reaching our people in Sudan, and it is very exciting, and we are so thankful for it, it's time to start thinking about, well, they have the raw materials, so how are they going to use it? That makes sense, right? When my friend Melina brought this subject up to me, I was just thinking, how did I not even think about that? But we're not dealing with that right now, so we don't think about it. So they're a really thoughtful couple of people who have thought about that, and they've thought about our people. And there is a trip happening to the refugee camps to Sudan within a matter of weeks. And so they're fundraising. A little goes such a long way, right? When you're doing it by yourself, it could feel a lot, and it is a lot. We're spreading, doing a lot. But the more people we tell, even a little from everybody is a lot. Just a little from everybody is a lot. Melina and her friends are putting together this, or have this fundraiser going on. They're buying the grinders and they're taking them to Sudan, so that as more and more aid gets there, people are able to grind the raw materials and use it within all the different camps that now exist. So I want to tell you where you can go to help with that initiative, and to read it from their own words, call to action. As our team is preparing to head to Sudan in a few weeks, so this was a week ago, so there's only 1 week left, we are speaking with our refugees in Sudan and assessing their needs to ensure they are met. Our people on the ground have expressed a dire need for food grinder machines, and commonly known as methani, I could be saying that wrong, methani in Tigray, used to grind grains and spices. These food grinders are needed to make everyday essential goods like injera, berbere, coffee. So they're taking and installing these machines, and you can donate by going to adjohumtigray@gmail.com if you have questions, or Cash App, $Adjohum the same on PayPal. I will write it down so that we don't get this wrong. Again, these are grinders that grind grains, spices, coffee. How do you use the supplies, the aid that you're given, if you can't grind it and make it usable? So again, it is Adjohum on PayPal and on Cash App. I'll show that. So it's the $ again. Nobody said this is a perfect show, right? Everything is real time. So thank you for bearing with me. I want to get it right. AJOKUM Tigray, spelled with a Y, on PayPal as well as Cash App. Again, thank you so much for all that you continue to do. I know it's for our collective people, but still I'm in awe of our community. So continuing on with what's happening. We are the World 36 for Tigray. So this is an event that is happening on April 23rd. It's a live event on Clubhouse. There's more information to come, and it looks like this, the flyer. So please be on the lookout for that. Again, on Tegaru events on Instagram. On the 24th, Tegaru Youth Edmonton, excuse me, there's a caravan protest against the genocidal war in Tigray. So it will be, again, on the 24th at 11 a.m., Oliver Square parking lot. Please show up if you're nearby. Please show up. Let's see. And of course, we had the Stand with Tigray campaign on the 17th, and the Amna campaign on the 16th. That's done with, and we continue on. Again, just as a reminder, an end to starvation, war crimes in Tigray is going on amnatigray.org. I know there's still some people in our community who may not be fully aware that now we have two equally, powerhouses working in tandem for our people. So there's standwithtigray.com, and there's also amnatigray.org, and tweets can be found on both. Remember, as you tweet, back to back, tweet, that can get your account canceled. So what I recommend, what I've been talking to my family about, is you go to the pre-made tweet, you tweet one, you tweet two, then for about 3 minutes or so, you scroll, you look at the news, you like a couple of things. There's a lot to like because allies are talking about it, Tagarus are tweeting. You like, and then maybe you quote tweet, meaning somebody has tweeted something, and so you retweet their tweet, but not just retweet, you press quote tweet and you say #Tigray genocide, and maybe you put your thoughts, or you put more of the information and you tweet that, and then you go back to the pre-made tweets and you tweet some more. So Twitter, like any machine, is fed by human beings, an algorithm, which basically means a human being sits down and they say, when it's a robot, this is what it looks like. Tweet, 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 tweet. When it's a human being, because it's easy to understand how human beings work usually, we tweet a couple of tweets and then we scroll, we like other people's tweets, or we comment on other people's tweets, maybe we retweet somebody else, and then we tweet. I hope that makes sense. And for more information, please reach out. Please reach out. Just gonna do a quick check on the comments. Alam, thank you so much for being engaged today. I love it. Adjohum Tigray on PayPal. Don't forget the $sign, because what I'm seeing, and also this is the flyer. This is what the flyer looks like. Food grinder fundraising. This is what the flyer looks like. And that's the food grinder. As you can tell, there's whole grains, there's spices, all this stuff. So you're right. Wow, you're right. So on PayPal, there's no $sign. Thank you. Thank you, Alamoa. So on PayPal, there's no $sign, just adjohumtigray@gmail.com is where, and then adjohumtigray on PayPal. You're right. PayPal wants you to give an email address, so you don't have the $sign. Cash App does not need you to give an email address, so there's the $sign with, I think, all Cash Apps. So thank you for that. Let me rectify. And this is where, as a community, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. Okay, so Adjohum Tigray on Cash App and at gmail.com or PayPal. Done. Save, and I'm going to show you this. So, yep. So on Cash App with the $sign, and that's one word, Adjohum Tigray, and then Adjohum Tigray @gmail.com for PayPal. And if you have any questions, please email that email address. You just can't go wrong. And as always, you can find me on all platforms at Helena Now. On all platforms, even my Gmail is helenanow@gmail.com. Just trying to make it as easy as possible. Helena Now. Any questions? Thank you, Alamoa. Thank you so much for helping. I love being here. I love being with you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Very, very wonderful and generous of you today, especially when I couldn't have needed you any more than today. So having said that, I really, really hope that you are continuing your striving for mental health in time of this crisis. Please remember that Tigray Tsariya, Tigray will prevail. There's no question. The real question right now is, how hard are we going to work to ensure that we not only are sane through this, but somehow we find a way to thrive through this so that we're ready to just take in our people once Tigray is accessible, that we are able to just flood it and really help not just reconstruct the land, but reconstruct the faith and the hope that is broken, by the actions that they've seen within our people. So we're taking care of ourselves for our immediate families and friends, ourselves, and also it's not a luxury anymore. Just reminding you gently, it's not a luxury. It's a must that we continue to take care of our mental health. I am in the community. Please reach out to me if anything. Again, I am a community liaison for HPN, which means access information for anyone who's trying to do work with our refugees, to do work with Tigray, fundraising. Everything is available. Anyone who's wanting to go to Sudan, we're doing our best to really have the toolkit, basically write the book on the easiest way, how to get there, how to help you with your visa, how to, my goodness, if you want to help, why not? Why wouldn't there be someone to help you get there? And we're asking for volunteers. If you're thinking about going, no pressure. It's all on what you can do. If you're thinking about going, you don't have to be a medical professional. the kids are just sitting there. They can use someone to play soccer with. Our communities there can use people to lead group conversations, and just showing up lets our people know that they're not alone, that they're being thought of, and they are each and every day. In our prayers, in our deeds, my prayers continue to be with you. Again, I'm here, and have a wonderful rest of Sunday. Please be good to yourselves and each other. Thank you so much. بالدعم يا مساكني.